We've been talking about moral dilemmas, in particular the trolley dilemmas, and we spent a little time trying to think about it. And we maybe we made some progress. We'll be making more, but what I wanted to do is really jump right into the context of the course. And I've already asked you to think a little, to read a little bit about in the introduction to the our text, and think about a moral dilemma that was posed there as an exercise. But what I want to really do is dive more deeply right now into moral dilemmas involved in policing, which is critical to criminal justice ethics. Because, in a certain sense, I mean, you might say the criminal justice ethics really starts with the law, but the fact of the matter is, where the rubber meets the road, it starts on the street where police have to enforce the law. And the other issue is, especially our students in general, we have many students in our criminal justice program, most of whom are looking to go into some sort of law enforcement career. And I think it will really relate very well. In fact, we have a lot of students who go into the police department. So I just want to briefly talk about the objectives that I have in terms of watching the movie. And here's the question: why the movie, The 7-5 in ethics? Ethics is a philosophy course. Why? So we want to answer why that. The next thing I want to do is also say, in addition to watching the movie, what should you be doing? That is, you should be getting out popcorn and watching, or there are things that you need to do to get what we need to for the sake of the course. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about assignments that I'm going to give you for watching the movie that you're going to be doing while you're watching the movie, in order for this to really be an educational experience. Okay, so now the first question: why the movie for the 7-5? Why are we watching a movie to learn about criminal justice ethics? I mean, can't we read a book? Haven't we got? Well, it's kind of interesting. The 7-5 is a documentary of a police corruption scandal that took place in an area that many of our students might be familiar with. In fact, a lot of them live particularly in the 75th precinct in Brooklyn. And this took place in the 1980s. And so it kind of relates to you. It took place in your neighborhood, and it's really indicative of what could happen when policing goes wrong. And just to think about the background, as I told you, takes place in the 75th precinct in East New York. In the movie, they're going to explain exactly where it is. When, during the 1980s, it was a significant scandal. And we had, every couple of decades, we have some big scandals, and oftentimes some police scandals. This was one of them. And then the subject we're really talking about are the moral dilemmas that face policemen when they came on the job and how they reacted to them. And we're not so much concerned about how they reacted to them, but we're trying to figure out what the morality is. That is, what we can learn from the movie is the kind of moral decisions that policemen on the job in New York City face, and what kind of problems, ethical problems, and ethical decisions police have to make in every day carrying out their duties. Now, what should you be doing while you're watching the movie? If you want to, you can take out the popcorn, but that's not a must. It's important for you to take notes during the movie. You got to keep track of what's happening at each point in the movie, because the details are important. We're going to be talking about what kinds of moral decisions have to be made, and what are the right decisions, what are the wrong decisions, and you need to have some facts to talk about. What's very nice about this, as opposed to some of my other applied ethics courses, like my business ethics courses, this is really something that happened. And this is something that I'm sure the decisions that were made by the officers in this movie come up or come up in every policeman's life from the time they leave the police academy. And you're going to see a little bit about how that works. Now, in order to keep track of what's going on, what you should do is keep track of the time and try kind of by scene, just to record of something of what's taking place, so that when you come up with something that's critical for the sake of our identifying moral dilemmas that the police officer or officers are facing, you excuse me, you can know you know where it when it took place. You can actually go back and take a look at it, since you can record, reverse the movie. It's important for you to know the names of the characters that appear in the movie, especially the main characters, so that we have an ability to talk about it in our discussion boards. We can have a discussion about what took place for what character, what decisions they will face, what moral dilemmas they face. And the important thing is not that it's wow, it's a cool movie, it took place, kind of interesting, kind of scary, kind of whatever. But the idea is we're thinking about moral choices that the characters are faced and that they make during the course of the movie. And our goal is to think a little bit about what is the right thing to do in all these cases. Now I'm going to assign some stuff for you to do while you're watching it. Oh, and you should be recording the dilemmas that are facing the characters, because I'm going to ask you some stuff. Oops. I am going to actually ask you to post information about the moral choices that the characters are making. That is, I'm going to ask you to explain the moral dilemma, explain the choices, why it's a moral dilemma, what choices police the police officer was faced with, what and know what decision they made, and whether it was the right or wrong decision. You should have some. You should think about that quite a bit, because I think I'm going to ask you to explain that. Well, with that, the next item is going to be to get into the movie. Take out your notes. You might want to look at the assignment that comes after the movie and get started on this.